Welcome back to the Oscar Project Podcast, the show where I discuss Oscar-nominated films year by year. I am your host, Jonathan Eaterberg, and today I'm bringing you an interview with Phil Mazo, director of the short film Replay. Before I jump into the interview, please be sure to subscribe to the show in your podcast player so you can get all the newest episodes as soon as they are released. If you like the interview and want to hear more, please consider leaving a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Phil Mazo is a comedic filmmaker and viral content creator known for his absurd, deadpan tone and twist-driven storytelling. His docucomedy Replay achieved nationwide theatrical distribution via Spotlight Cinema Network's curated pre-show, won the Audience Choice Award for Documentary Short at the 2025 Calgary International Film Festival, and is now on the Academy Screening Room in the Documentary Short Film category. He joins me on the podcast to discuss the film. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So you mentioned in your film that you decided to make this project during COVID. You were doing some digitizing of old home movies and things like that. What were your first thoughts when you came across the specific footage that you used for this film?
My first thoughts were, wow, what a interesting memory. And also there's something really funny here. I wonder if I can do something with it.
And of course, you obviously did. And normally we have documentaries focusing on some sort of external subject matter. What kind of challenges did this present, deciding to make a documentary about yourself, your own younger self, and so to speak?
I think the biggest challenge with that is number one, when it's kind of like your story, I think that can make it a little bit tougher to sort of distill like what is the part of this that would be interesting to a general audience, and try to kind of like put on my objective hat and be like, what's universal here? What will people enjoy even if they don't know who I am? Obviously my friends are going to find this funny no matter what. So that's one thing. The other thing about that was, how can I extract as much out of this moment that happened as possible to give like a whole story, because uh, obviously for the audience who maybe hasn't seen it yet, this might be sort of out of context, but like not a lot happens in that VHS tape. So I was like, how can I, expand on this?
So in your film, just to give a little bit of context, you're attempting to recreate I think about 30-year-old interview that you did as a young kid, talking about your experiences playing chess, and you try and recreate it with the set, the shot angles, and of course the interviewer himself. So what was the hardest part to recreate in setting that up?
Well, funny enough, I can't say that I found it all that hard, and that's part of what inspired me to go in this direction, because when I was watching the footage and the idea came to me, I called up my co-producer Neil, who he also shot it, and we did it in his studio. And I showed him the clip, and I'm like, "Look at this! Like, we can recreate this so easily on our own. Like, it's not that hard." In the case of the interviewer, his was super simple because it's just a black backdrop with a plant. So I just had to locate a plant that looked like that. Black backdrop is super simple. My part was a little bit more going on. There was like a trellis with some, plastic plants that are going through it, but still not that much. So, obviously there's a lot of work that does go into it. We did have two monitors side by side where we're trying to like match everything as closely as possible. I don't want to suggest that there wasn't a lot of time and effort that went into this, but it was just a matter of just putting that time and effort in to get that to happen. But it was very clear, what we need to do, and it was also just honestly really fun. And one thing I even talked about with Neil was, we both also just kind of enjoy sort of trying to match footage for whatever reason. Like, it's just like a fun project, regardless of whether or not there's a story, to be like, can I get this video or photo to look exactly like a thing, especially in the context of something that, for example, is a parody, where that's exactly
Sure,
what you're doing. So, all which is to say, it wasn't super easy, but it was really fun and it wasn't that hard.
sure. And you're talking about the interviewer. So you reached out to the gentleman who interviewed you back when you were young in the original footage. What sort of reaction did you expect to get from him? And then kind of what was the ultimate reaction that you did get from him?
So I was extremely delicate with how I reached out to him. I was so pumped about this idea. Like when I called up Neil, I'm like, imagine, if we get this guy, like this will be so funny and so cool, like very unique, and obviously it's reliant on this guy to agree, so it's like I really was very meticulous and careful about my outreach because I knew I kind of had one shot and I felt that this is a really big ask of the guy because I'm essentially asking him to participate in this project as the antagonist. It doesn't necessarily make him look great, but also I wanted to make it 100% clear that I'm not out to get him. My only intention is to create some great comedy and like a great story, and he's in good hands. And I showed him my previous work so that he was familiar with the things I've done comedically and short films I've made and things like that. So I just I worked on that email, I ran it by Neil, I'm like, "Does this sound good?" And so I didn't know what to expect, but what I did not expect, which is what happened, which was he immediately responded very affirmatively, and he was on board, and yeah, it was off to the races.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're almost kind of asking him to be a parody of himself in a way.
Yeah, and, my feeling about it, and, I don't know to what degree I articulated this to him, but I think I kinda got the vibe across, which is by you participating in this, it kinda redeems you of anything because now you're in on the joke, we're all making fun of ourselves, we're all having fun, it sort of it to my mind, it kind of just, like, evens everything out in that way.
Sure. Now, before you found the footage in that digitizing effort that we talked about earlier, what sort of memories did you remember doing the interview at all, or is it something you kind of just forgotten about until you found that footage?
Yeah, I remembered it very well. It was definitely a very, it's one of those formative memories from your childhood. Part of what I remember about it was, I was 12 years old and it was my first time on TV. Granted, we're talking public access, but as a 12-year-old boy who, to be perfectly honest with you, even at that age, like I dreamt of being an actor and making films and things like that. Like I was so excited to be on TV. At the same time, I was also an incredibly shy child, and you probably can see that in the footage. And so when I showed up, I was really just really shy, really intimidated. And the other thing about it is what you don't really get a sense of in the film because I sort of omitted any of this is that I was actually not the main guest of that show. The main guest of that was my chess teacher. He brought me along as one of his students.
Mm,
And I only took him out of it because I was like, he's not really part of the story I'm telling. I don't want to muddy, I don't want to muddy the audience with unimportant details as far as the story goes. You know what I mean?
sure.
But because I was there sort of on his behalf, on top of everything else, I felt sort of an obligation to make the guy look good, he's there to promote his, chess school and all that stuff. And so I didn't want to say anything that, would hurt that. And so when he asked me the question that he asked me, which I I don't want to give anything away. I was also very delicate with my response because I'm like, he caught me off guard and I'm like, how do I answer this in a way that doesn't make chess or the guy look bad, but also I don't wanna lie,
Right,
So, and all which is to say, this was, I was very aware of this from my past, and it was definitely one of the I can remember being there from, like, the point of view of that kid.
right, right. And obviously, the film itself that we're talking about is pretty short form at the moment. Any chance we get a longer version of this or a fuller version of the interview at some point in the future, or are we just going to keep it at this?
I'm not gonna rule out that possibility, but I'm not sure is the answer. I will say that almost everybody who sees it wants to see more
Yeah.
and are always asking me this question, and my answer has typically been I don't know how much more I can get out of this incident. Like, I know it's short, but I feel like I extract as much as I can. However, It's also possible that something just hadn't come to me yet. And I will say that recently there have been ideas bubbling in my mind of how I can maybe expand on this. So it is possible. I just don't know yet.
Sounds good. Well, I have a couple of questions not specifically related to the film, but before I move on, is there anything else you want to touch on about Replay?
I guess I'll just say that for those who haven't seen it yet, I think not only is it funny, which I can say objectively because I've had a lot of screenings and people are always laughing. It's kind of like I used to do stand up, and with this film, I feel the same way as a stand up does when you've been trying jokes around the country that are working, and now you're like, okay, when I show up, they're gonna laugh here, they're gonna laugh here. It's like I'm traveling with like an act that's working, and it just feels really fun. So not only that, but, as we kind of have hinted at, I don't like to go too much into detail because I don't wanna spoil anything. What I love about this film is just that special thing that happens at the end that I don't think that's ever happened in any kind of film. I don't know if it will ever happen again because it just requires too many things to align that are just statistically unlikely.
Yeah,
And so I would just encourage people to go out and, check it out.
absolutely. Well, this might be the hardest question I ask, but if you had to pick your top 3 films of all time, what would they be?
Yeah, this is a tough question, and it's not like I do have favorite films in my mind. I can't say I could pick a top three, but I'll give you three of them. They're not going to be anything that is groundbreaking, but Goodfellas, Schindler's List, and Fargo.
Excellent choices. Can't argue with those. Now, if you could invite any 3 movie characters to your next dinner party, who would they be and why?
This is a tough question. I'll give you, Marty McFly. The reason being that when I was a kid, I wanted to be Marty McFly and I wanted to be Michael J. Fox. I just always looked up to him. I think a lot of people probably, of my age and all ages maybe, did because it was just such a huge movie that people love. But I think on top of it, also for me, is that, I don't know to what degree you can tell from the film or just see me, but, like, I'm also a short, kinda small guy, so I was like, "Oh, here's a guy out there," Marty McFly, Michael J. Fox.
Little guys can make it too.
Yeah, exactly. Outside of that, I don't know if I could give you any more characters.
That's all right. Marty's a good dinner guest, or what? I think he'd be a good dinner guest.
Yeah.
He could bring a time machine. He could bring his guitar, play some music. He's a all around sort of guy. Well, do you have any books that you could recommend that you've read recently, or books that you really enjoy?
I'm typically a pretty big reader historically and almost exclusively nonfiction, unfortunately, because I think fiction is really good for you. But I'm always just wanting to like learn things and kind of self help and whatever. Having said that, for the last 2 or 3 months, I haven't read anything. So I kind of like looked at my history to see what I've read recently that jumped out at me. And so one that this is actually kind of anyway, it's a book called The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. And this was recommended to me by just a guy I met at a party once. And he recommended it to me because I'm from Newark, New Jersey. And this is a story about a guy from Newark, New Jersey. So I kind of read it with that in mind. And funny enough, soon after I read it, I discovered that there's a movie about it that I think came out recently, maybe by the same title. I actually haven't seen it yet,
Huh.
so I don't know. But it's basically about this guy from like the inner city in Newark who went to private school and then he went to like Yale and he kind of like fell into the wrong crowd and just as someone from Newark who has some parallel, similarities. First of all, I recognize a lot of the stuff in the book, the locations, but also
Sure.
I went to private school and I ended up going to an Ivy League school just like this guy. I might not be like an inner city kid, but, there was a lot of similarities that I enjoyed. So that's one book. Another one, funny enough, I recently read, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter by 50 Cent. Um, and I gotta tell you, I love books like this because the guy just has such a great mindset, and that's what I like to pick up on these books, like, just someone who's just, like, a go-getter, it's like, I need to get that in my mind at all times, and I love that kind of stuff. And along the similar lines, another one that I loved is Be Useful by Arnold Schwarzenegger, which came out pretty recently. It's kind of like his self-help book, and man, what an amazing guy Arnold Schwarzenegger is. I mean, the guy just kills it at every game.
Yeah, I think I have a copy of that. I just picked that one up not too long ago either. I haven't cracked it open yet, but I've got a copy over here on my bookshelf, so I'll have to give that a go.
Yeah. Oh, I'll mention one last one, which I haven't read in a while, but I got to read again. Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but man, that was one of the most impactful self-help books I ever read, and I really use a lot of the tips that I read in that to this day.
Absolutely. Well, we'll put some links to those books so people can check them out. And who else from the world of film should I have on the podcast as a future guest?
Two people that I can well, actually, I'd like to recommend three
Sure.
people who are Oscar related that I've met in the course of my film festival run with Replay. One is, her name is Courtney, I think her last name is Podraza. She is the writer behind this film that is also it's up for a live action short. It's called Medusa. Really good film that I've been recommending to everybody. Um, another one, is, Greg Rubner, and he's got a film called What the Heck is Going On that's in the same category as Medusa right now in the Oscar race, and that's a great film that I also saw at a festival. Another person, is Kenny Riches, who he wrote, directed, and starred in a feature-length film that is killing it at festivals now and is really good. Like, basically, when I saw this film, I was like, "This film has everything other than a star." So, unfortunately, a star is a
Oof.
really important variable in, like, the success, but I'm like, "But man, if people went out to watch this, like, they would really enjoy it." It's, such a fun film. It's called Mouse, and his film actually just won a jury award, I think, at, a festival in Knoxville that is Oscar qualifying, and so therefore, they will be in this race next year. And then, another person I would recommend, a really good buddy of mine, he's actually an Emmy winner, really talented director named, Yuri Alves. Really close friend of mine who we've collaborated on stuff, and, I see this guy almost every day.
Awesome. Well, some good names that we can definitely reach out to and see if we can have them on. And lastly, before we wrap up, do you have any other projects lined up? And also, where can people follow you on social media?
Yes, so I am currently in production on a feature-length documentary that is also my story. I'm also the subject of it, but I'm not directing it. I'm doing it with two partners. I can't get too much into it, but what I can tell you is this is a true crime story from my life, much more traumatic than Replay, but a really interesting, exciting story that we're also, despite the fact that it's more serious, let's say, we're also kind of taking a comedic approach at it. And I'm really excited about that. And then as far as where people can find me, my Instagram is at Phil Mazo, Philmazo. And I also create comedic content online. And my most popular video, which is the one pinned all the way at the top, is over 35 million views. It's only 7 seconds, and I'm very proud of it. If people just want to get an idea of what my sort of comedy is like, that's a really good distillation.
Sounds good. Well, Phil, thank you so much for the time today. Thank you for sharing your film with me. I appreciated getting to see it and getting to hear some of the stories behind the making of it.
Thanks so much for having me. Great talking to you.
Thank you again to my guest today, Phil Mazo. His film Replay is currently available in the Academy Screening Room in the documentary short category. The Oscar Project podcast is written and produced by me, Jonathan Eaterberg, with editing assistance from Joshua Eaterberg. If you want more movie coverage, check out the Oscar Project online at theoscarproject.substack.com. I'll be back on Friday to discuss the 1930 film The Green Goddess, and next Tuesday I'll have another interview with a great guest from the world of film. Until then, I hope to see you at the movies.